brothers Charles and Frank Duryea invented the first American gasoline-powered automobile in 1893. In 1886, Charles saw a stationary gasoline-powered engine at the Ohio State Fair. After examining the engine, he believed it would have enough power to propel itself and a wagon-like frame on top of it. With the help of his brother Frank, he created a design for his idea and had it built by 1893. They successfully tested their self-powered wagon on the streets of Springfield, Massachusetts on September 20, 1893. After this, in 1895, Frank Duryea entered America's first automobile race, driving the brothers' car, and finished first, winning $2,000. In 1996, Charles and Frank sold 13 of their Duryea motor wagons to the public, but the business never took off, so the brothers parted ways. Years later, the brothers got into an argument over who should get more credit towards the historic invention. Although they may say otherwise, both brothers played a huge part in sparking the automotive industry in the US and making it what it is today. Although the first gasoline-powered automobile was invented in the late 1800s, they weren't widely available until Ford Motor Company released the Model T on October 1, 1908. The Model T was inexpensive compared to other cars at the time. It cost approximately $825, or $21,650 in 2015, which made it easier for middle-class citizens to afford. Since the car was in high demand, Henry Ford took the idea of the assembly lines to the next level in his factories, and by 1914 was able to produce a new Model T every 93 minutes. The car-making process was so quick and efficient, the price of the Model T dropped to around $240, or $6,300 in 2015. By 1925, 50% of cars in the world were Fords, indicating how the release of the Model T changed the automotive industry. The Model T was the first car to become widely affordable to people with different incomes. With so many Ford automobiles, 10,666 on the road by 1909, driving eventually became the primary way to get around. Throughout the century, there have been three main automotive companies, referred to as the Big Three, which have thrived in the industry: Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors. As more people wanted cars, more companies emerged and have surpassed the Big Three in certain categories, but Ford, GM, and Chrysler were founded in the beginning and have always been some of the biggest and most popular car companies. General Motors was founded in 1908 by William Durant. In the first year of business, Durant bought Buick and Oldsmobile. The next year, he purchased 7 more companies, including Pontiac and Cadillac. In 1910, Durant was kicked out of the company after he lost the trust of the GM bankers when he tried to buy Ford for $8 million, which would have put them in serious debt. In his time off, he co-founded Chevrolet, which was later bought by GM. Despite nearly going bankrupt several times through the years, GM kept producing cars and is still one of the top 5 automotive companies in the world today. In 1903, Henry Ford founded Ford Motor Company with the release of the Model A. After the release of the Model T in 1908, things took off for the company. Henry Ford revolutionized the idea of the assembly line, which made him able to pay his employees $5 a day, about $131 in 2015. He believed the good pay would make his personnel work harder, which would improve the quality of his cars. Throughout the years, Ford has produced many different types of cars and continues to create new products, which is why Ford is one of the most successful automobile companies in the world. After many years in the automotive industry, Walter P. Chrysler took control of the Maxwell Motor Company and renamed it the Chrysler Corporation. Chrysler went on to purchase the Dodge Brothers Incorporated and release the Plymouth line, putting them right up there with GM and Ford. After World War II, Chrysler became one of the first companies to start making muscle cars, powerful cars with V8 engines. Around this time, Chrysler bought a few other car companies, which helped it keep its spot in the Big Three. In the 70s, like many other companies, Chrysler was challenged by the fuel-efficient Japanese cars. This almost led Chrysler to bankruptcy, but they powered through by coming out with some new models. Today, Chrysler isn't as popular as it once was, but is still one of the top 10 manufacturers in America. Ever since cars became the main way to get around, people have needed to buy gasoline. Lately, lots of talk in the news has been about the price of gasoline per gallon, since it often goes up and down. Oftentimes, when people see that gasoline was around 25 cents a gallon in 1908, they wonder how it can be almost $4 a gallon today. The extreme difference in these numbers is due to inflation. In the past 100 years, prices of things have gone up and the value of money has gone down, making it seem like gas prices have risen to an extremely high amount, when the reality is they really haven't. $1 in 1915 has the same buying power as $23 in 2015. This is why these two graphs have converted all their gas price data into the monetary value of one specific time period, so everything is relative. When we look at it from this angle, it becomes clear that gas prices have not just been going up, but going down as well. It turns out that in 1919, gas prices were almost the same as they were in 2011. The reason gas prices fluctuate is because of supply and demand. Some years, oil companies don't get as much oil, so the price goes up. Other years, oil companies get a lot of oil, so the price goes down. That's just how it goes. The Great Depression and World War II both had huge effects on the automotive industry. During the 30s, most car companies perished because of the economic crisis during the Depression. From 1929 to 1931, automotive companies lost $131 million altogether, about $2.9 billion of 2010 money. However, some automotive companies actually profited during the Great Depression. GM was ready when it came, so they immediately lowered all their prices and stopped producing as heavily as before. The Chrysler Corporation also took advantage of the Great Depression and became even more popular. Chrysler used a similar strategy to GM's, cutting workers, closing factories, lowering prices, and reducing production. Since they were making less cars, they made sure their factories were working efficiently. This made the quality of their products go up, ultimately pushing them out of the Great Depression and into the big three automobile companies. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, most commercial automobile production was halted to start producing for the war. The big three all pitched in and made war vehicles, aircrafts, and other equipment. Automobile factories were converted into war factories to fulfill the Army's order of over $10 billion of equipment. Chrysler and Ford even built new factories specifically to aid in the war effort. By the time the war finished, all these factories had produced about 5.9 million weapons, 27,000 aircrafts, and 2.8 million tanks and trucks. The United States automotive companies were undoubtedly a huge part in the Allies' victory in World War II. Although air conditioning was invented in 1903, it wasn't incorporated into cars until 1933, when a New York company offered to install a system in an existing car. In 1939, Packard Motor Company began offering an option to have an air conditioning unit installed in their vehicles. If this was requested, they would ship their car off to Bishop and Baba Company in Cleveland to install the system, and then it would be shipped back for the customer to buy. Even though Packard was the only company offering AC at the time, few people took them up on the offer because it was very expensive, about $274 or $4,500 in 2015, and the unit took up half the trunk space in the back. Not surprisingly, the offer was no longer available after 1941. In 1953, the Chrysler Imperial became the first car to offer AC as an option since the Packard in 1941. Chrysler joined with AirTemp, an AC company, to create an AC unit that would be simple and easy for the passenger to use. Unlike the Packard, there was a switch on the dashboard that could be turned to low, medium, or high. The AirTemp system was also much more powerful than the Bishop and Babbitt unit, which is what made it more popular. In 1954, Nash Motors released the Nash Ambassador, which was the first car that came with a pre-installed heating, ventilating, and air conditioning system. This is more like what is found in most cars' AC system today. Before automatic transmission, all cars had to be shifted from gear to gear manually, using the clutch. If this process was done incorrectly, the car could stall, which could cause the engine to stop altogether. To make driving easier, in 1939, General Motors released the Hydra-Matic, the first mass-produced car with an automatic transmission. A car with automatic transmission has no clutch and does not require the driver to manually shift gears. Behind this invention is Earl A. Thompson, who in 1924 got in contact with GM to show them his idea. The reason GM eventually used Thompson's idea is because, unlike other automatic transmissions from the time, Thompson used a hydraulic transmission to switch gears. This means the transmission used water to change the speed of the engine into whatever speed the wheels needed to be going. GM paid Thompson $10,000 for the invention and then began to mass-produce the Hydra-Matic. After this, many other companies began to use the automatic transmission technology, which became very popular in the years to come. In 2014, 75 years after the release of the Hydra-Matic, only 6.5% of cars were manual, which shows how important this invention was to the automotive industry. In 1945, Ralph Teeter invented cruise control. Despite being blind from the age of 5, Teeter had a knack for mechanics. By the age of 13, he had already built his own automobile that could travel up to 25 miles per hour. In 1912, he graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in engineering and joined his family's company, a company that manufactured piston rings. He invented other things in his lifetime, but his most important patent was cruise control. Cruise control was designed to make car rides smoother. It allowed the car to be set to a certain speed and stay there, so there was no longer a need to speed up and slow down. This was mainly designed for highway use rather than city use, because a car could go miles on a highway without needing to change speeds. The first car to adopt this technology was the 1958 Chrysler Imperial, and by 1960, all Cadillacs had it. People have expanded the idea of cruise control over the years, but it still has the same concept as the one patented by the blind inventor, Ralph Teeter, who changed the way many people drive today. After a scary car crash in 1952, John Hetrick worked day and night on his idea to stop people from hitting the dashboard of their car during a crash. He drew it up on paper and eventually designed a system that would shoot a pocket of compressed air into a bag in the dashboard when contact to the front end of the car was detected. This made sure the passenger would not be flung forward onto the dashboard. Hetrick showed his new invention to Ford, but they feared the airbag could be fatal to children and might not be completely consistent since it was being mass-produced. By this time, GM was already working on their own airbags and had them tested and ready by 1973. They manufactured 1,000 Chevrolet Impalas with airbags that year. During the next 2 years, they manufactured 100,000 cars with airbags, but only around 10,000 of them sold. GM and other companies gave up on the idea until the US government passed a law in 1990 that said all cars must have airbags installed. No car on the road today drives without airbags. The invention has saved countless lives and will continue to do so thanks to John Headrick. In 1999, Honda released the Insight, the first hybrid car available widespread in the US. A hybrid car is a car that has a gas-powered engine and an electric motor. A main reason why hybrids are made is because of the fear of global warming and pollution. Statistics are showing that the planet is getting warmer, partly because of all the emissions from cars. Honda took the first step towards saving the planet by making a half-gas, half-electric car. 7 months later, Toyota released their own hybrid car, the Prius. Many other automotive companies began to release hybrid cars as the market grew bigger and the push to go green became stronger. By 2010, over 1 million Priuses had been sold in the US alone. The hybrid car is a big deal because in order to stop polluting the atmosphere, gasoline-powered vehicles have to get off the road entirely. Even though a hybrid is only the first step, the cars will keep getting better and better just as history has showed. Hopefully, the hybrid car and the innovations that come after can eventually save the planet from global warming. The U.S. automotive industry has had a huge impact on many different parts of America during the past 100 years. Everything from the first gasoline engine in the late 1800s all the way to the first hybrid car in the early 2000s has changed the country, mostly for the better. Throughout the years, cars have progressed greatly and have been a huge part of the economy. Nowadays, the average American household owns at least 2 cars, a pretty big step up from the 1800s. However, without the help of numerous relentless inventors, the automobile would not be on the streets today. It's hard to think of a world without cars, isn't it? What would we do without them? As stated earlier, the automotive industry is connected to many other parts of American history. The automobile is a product that virtually everyone needs, so cars kept selling and many more companies joined the industry. Cars kept becoming even more popular as the years went by, so more innovators started to suggest their own ideas, such as airbags and cruise control. It seemed as if everyone was pitching in to make the automobile as advanced as possible. With the ideas of a whole country going into one product, it's hard not to get better. As the car progressed daily, the American lifestyle began to change. By the 50s and 60s, the idea of the American dream became a family with 2 kids, a dog, and a car. This idea progressed the industry even further along, with the help of new inventions to go along with it. One major problem that came up was the threat of global warming from car emissions. Once more people became aware of this problem and how dangerous it could be, cars were put into the spotlight. This is what prompted inventors to develop the new hybrid car technology and eventually develop fully electric cars. Although a small percentage of Americans drive zero-emission cars today, the rate is slowly increasing. A day where the majority of the population drives zero-emission cars is soon in our future. Cars have had their ups and downs over the years, but have always powered through with new technologies and kept their place as one of the top products being sold in America. As more engineers make new innovations, the automotive industry will keep progressing and growing, hopefully in a positive direction.